Hey guys, welcome back to Project Bodybuilding, here with another episode of my Road to the 2025 Mr. Olympia series. In today's episode, Regan Grimes and Rafael Brandao will be going head to head. These guys share a lot of similarities when you think about it. They've both been around for a little while, we all know them, but they have huge reserves of untapped potential to fill. They're both on the taller-ish side of competitors compared to most of the guys today, but they're also on the smaller side. However, they showcase some great aesthetics as a trade-off. They also have a decent amount of competitive history together, but this year will be the first time they stepped on the same Olympia stage in the same year. Who will prevail though? Let's jump into today's video to find out. Remember, if you guys like these types of videos, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to date on this series and all my future videos. First up, we have the front double, and given these two are cut from the same aesthetic cloth, we have a fairly evenly matched pose. They both indeed have great shape, and they do lack a little size compared to their peers, but Regan even more so. Rafa isn't the biggest guy pound for pound out there, that's actually his main criticism, he needs more size, but even next to Rafa, Regan looks a little frail. He's not even trading size for extra points in the aesthetic column either. I actually think his ribcage makes his torso shape look a little odd, and then Rafael beats him in pretty much everything, definitely in the quads. Regan has a noticeable imbalance now, and Rafa takes the important things upstairs like the lats and the arms. I mean, Regan's waist might be a bit smaller, which means his X-frame is technically better, but I actually prefer Rafa's shape. He's more filled in and more filled out evenly across the areas, leading to a more balanced look, which to me is just as important as the overall X-frame. In the grand scheme of things, these guys are pretty similar to each other, and I think you'd notice that a bit more in a full lineup, so it's not a knockout, but this first pose does go to Rafa narrowly. Given this second pose is yet another one that highlights shape and structure, once again these guys are pretty similar. At first I actually liked Regan a bit more just for his silhouette. He does have a slightly better X-frame, especially for this shot, but man, he just looks way too flat. And the legs are weak, to be honest. I don't think those are strong legs. The size on one of them is okay at least, but the other is a lot smaller and the cuts are just not there. There's just not a whole lot going on. It's the same in the upper half. The chest completely flattens out, but the lats are wide and prominent in this shot. Rafa is just as wide though from what I can tell here, and his lats insert a bit lower and they just look thicker from the front. The chest is also a lot thicker and the quads blow Regan's out of the water. That's actually what convinced me to change my vote here. The lats are similar enough on each guy, but Rafa wins, don't get me wrong. However, it's the extra muscle and 3D quality, the extra depth on Rafa that pushed me over to his side. So he's going to notch another narrow win. And when I say narrow, I'm talking about the number of points he's going to get on the scorecard. Remember, in my comparisons, it's 2 points for narrow wins, 3 points for solid wins, and 4 points for dominant wins. That means so far, Rafa has won 2 points and has a total of 4 points in this matchup. I've already said this for both guys, but it needs to be said again. Their main criticism is that they need more size. In recent years, they have made efforts to add that size. They've both taken full year-long periods away from the stage recently. Regan has actually done it twice in the past 4 years, but only one of these guys has had a big level up, and it wasn't him. The side chest is going to expose a lack of thickness if you don't have it, and Regan is definitely looking a little too frail once again. Rafael, on the other hand, brings a very good side chest pose now. He already had the framework for a good shot with the wide shoulders and good muscle bellies, but now he's cashing in. The crazy thing is, I think he could actually be better. The crazy thing is, I think he could actually make this pose better by adding more size. So he should definitely be trying to get bigger. Regan should be trying too, but it's just a lost cause, to be honest. If you saw my recent progress report video with Regan, you'll know that this shot and pretty much all the others regressed. Here his side leg is decent because he's in condition, but upstairs is just pitiful. I don't even know if I'd give Regan the side leg, honestly. Rafa is a lot bigger and the separation is there too. He just doesn't have the glute feathers. Rafa does have a little more detail in the obliques for what that's worth though. And then he's schooling Regan everywhere else. His pecs are at least double the thickness, probably more, and his arm is a lot thicker and the shoulder a lot rounder. Regan pretty much only has condition going for him here. I suppose that's enough to limit Rafa's margin, but we gotta upgrade Rafa here compared to his last wins. Those poses, they were both kind of similar, but here there's a big difference. So this one will be worth 3 points, again going to Brandao. If there was one thing Regan is good at, it's back shots. His quality advantage certainly goes farther here, while Rafa's mid-conditioning hinders his own pose a lot. Rafa's back does look pretty thick, he's still gonna need more though, and more complete development. He's gotta start filling in that lower back. On the other hand, Regan's back is incredibly underrated, to be honest. I guess no one expects this good of a back on such a young guy, especially when Regan lacks a lot of development everywhere else. But credit to where it's due, this is on the short list for the best backs in the current era. He's very complete, traps to to lower lats and back, and he has a very high level of detail here. And it's not just his back that's among the best right now, the entire pose is. In fact, he has a bigger win in the lower half here over Rafa than in the back portion. The hamstrings are very good and the glutes are in as well. Even the quad sweeps, which I didn't like as much from the front, look pretty good here. And Rafael's poor condition really catches up with him. He could have a lot better pose top to bottom if he was just in better condition, but he's not even doing that, on top of needing some more development. That leaves Regan with strong wins upstairs and down, so I think that's worth a very solid 3 points. I think this next back pose shows even more of Rafael's weaknesses from the back. And yes, this pick is from the 2024 Olympia prejudging, but it doesn't really matter. The outcome is roughly the same no matter what photo is being used. His back is wide, but you can see that lack of depth here. Look at how much thicker and more developed his legs are compared to his back. He certainly isn't matching top to bottom. Regan is not even the thickest guy either, but he's definitely more developed than Brandao on top of being a bit wider and more detailed. And the lower half is still the same thing. Rafa has the foundation, but he's got to strip down to really show it off. Regan is just too detailed for him right now. So while Rafa has the makings of what could be a good pose, right now Regan is the one doing it all, so another 3 points goes to him. Fortunately for Rafa, we're coming out of that rough patch for him and going on to another side pose. But Regan is a bit better here than he was in the side chest since there's a little less emphasis put on thickness and more on that streamlined torso. In the side leg, I once again prefer Rafa. He's just noticeably bigger, but then again, like in the last pose, Regan is more shredded. So I can see why one would pick him. Now up top, starting in the midsection, I gotta go with Rafa again. His abs look better to me. From the side angle, they're way more defined for whatever reason. He also has the better torso shape overall because he's definitely taken a win in the pecs. Regan is way too flat yet again. Now in the arm, I'd give everything to Rafa except the tricep. That is the namesake of this pose, but honestly, it's just not enough to outweigh everything else Rafa has going for him. Regan looks too streamlined here, I gotta be honest. Yet again, he just looks too small, and that's next to Rafa, who again also needs more size. I even think Rafa's actually made more aesthetic because he has more overall size, which is a bit counterintuitive. But he has the fuller pecs and the bigger side leg, so top to bottom he looks more balanced and still has a great midsection too. I originally just had this shot as a narrow 2-point win for Rafa, but honestly the more I look, the more I question how or why anyone would go with Regan. So like in the side chest, I'm going to bump this up to 3 points as well. We are well aware that size and sometimes condition aren't these guys' strong suits. They're known for aesthetics. However, the abs and thighs pose is one of the poses where aesthetics matters the most, but we only get one good pose here. I just don't think Rafael is that good. Not bad, but meh. The abs especially. The condition is just never the best on him and that doesn't help, but even genetically the abs are just okay. Just a 4-pack, nothing crazy. Now the quads are great, but I'd really like to see better abs. We get the opposite from Regan. Firstly, his quads are pretty underwhelming. He just doesn't have the separation nor the size of Rafa. That Cali Pro lighting is though, I'll give him that. That lighting definitely doesn't help anyone, but his legs, even at the best, at least from the front, are just decent. And Rafa has really good quads, underrated. He certainly has enough size and separation to beat Regan. But in the abs, Regan definitely claps back. He's got that good blockiness to the abs, the better genetics with the 6-pack, and the sharper obliques. He even has the better torso shape for this shot. So we have one guy winning the abs and one guy winning the thighs, but I always maintain that the abs are more important in this shot. Are Regan's legs bad here? No, they're fine, I guess. I find Rafa's abs to be more mid for this shot, especially because that's the more important piece. So Regan is winning more where it counts, and overall I'm just not that impressed by Rafa. So I think this is a fairly clear victory. Not a blowout, but clear enough for Regan to shore up 3 points. And finally, we've reached the final pose in today's matchup. First off, I like Regan's most muscular. It's a good looking pose, but being aesthetic isn't quite enough for a pose called the most muscular. He once again is out of his depth by being out of depth. It's a good looking pose with no real bark to the bite. Comparing hands together shots, Rafa isn't too much better, but he is still a little ahead, at least to me. It's only like a 52-48 type of deal though. I like Rafa's chest, delts, and arms more, and he wins the legs again, but these wins aren't as big as they have been in previous shots. I also really miss Rafa having good abs in this shot, and Regan has very good abs at the same time. But this isn't Rafa's main variation. His crab pose is, and luckily for him, it's definitely a more convincing pose. The arms, delts, and traps are popping even more here, the legs are still good, and for this pose he gets to downplay the midsection. And finally, that chest on him seals it for sure. He's embarrassing Regan's lack of thickness here pretty bad. So what we have is a variation that Rafa barely wins, maybe, and one that he wins by a bit more. Still not a blowout though. I'm going to play it safe considering how close Rafa's hands clasped pose was, and just give him a 2-pointer in our final pose. Next we have the second round of judging, which are the 4 overall physique categories: shape, muscularity, flaws, and conditioning. Let's start with both condition and muscularity because they're the same, but they fall on either side of the aisle here. They get 2 points apiece: Regan in condition, Rafa in muscularity. Regan being more separated from the back pushed him over the edge in that category, but Rafa has okay separation from the side and front. Rafael wins his category because obviously he's just more thickly developed than Regan, but there is a slight gap in the back department though. All in all, I could see arguments for both of these margins getting slightly increased to 3 points, but I'd make them the same either way, so it doesn't really matter. And speaking of things being the same, we can talk about the shape category next. Once it gets as close as this, because shape is so subjective, I often just make cases like these a tie. Regan's X-frame is maybe a little bit better as I mentioned before, but Rafa has the balance on his side. You could call both of these guys more aesthetic than the other, and I could definitely find the same amount of ways to agree or disagree, so again, it's a tie. And finally, that brings us to flaws. Now, I've said both guys need to be bigger, and that's true. However, because they both stayed pretty small compared to the average top bodybuilder, they've escaped a lot of the issues that comes with that level of size. There are no muscle tears on these guys, they don't have lumpy delts or other sus areas, and their physiques just look natural. And I obviously don't mean natural as in they don't use gear, but they just look real. The muscles move organically when they pose, they have striations and details where they should, they just don't have blurry areas from habitual gear use or even SEO use. So this isn't a tie, well it is, but they're not equaling each other because they're not even competing in this category because they don't have issues really. Outside of things we don't count in this category like Rafa's lack of stellar condition or Regan's more prevalent lack of size. When it comes down to blemishes on physiques, there isn't anything on either side worth punishing someone over. And finally, it's time to reveal the final scores and the winner of this matchup. Winning today's comparison with 54.8 points was Rafael Brandao. Regan was not too far behind though, scoring 45.2 points. But before I talk about what happened here and what I'm predicting for these two in 2025, let's backtrack a little. In the last 5 years, these guys have competed together twice. They competed at the 2020 Europa Pro, and Rafa beat Regan at that show, but neither was the actual winner of that show. And then the next year, they competed at the 2021 Prague Pro, and once again, Regan was beat by Rafa by 1 placing. Now, they have yet to be on the Olympia stage at the same time, but we can still take a look at their placings. Regan has been to the Olympia 3 times, but Rafa has enjoyed higher placings in better lineups. The first 2 times Regan was at the Olympia, he almost didn't even place. He was 15th both times. On Rafa's first Olympia showing, he was top 10, and the past year at the 2024 Olympia, he was 8th. Regan was closer to that trajectory in 2023, placing 9th there, but both of Rafa's years at the Olympia had much deeper lineups. So even Regan's best placing is kind of watered down. Also at the 2023 Mr. Olympia, Regan was beat by Tonio Burton by 1 place. Well, in 2024, Rafa beat Tonio at the Arnold Brazil, so there's that. But anyway, has anything changed, or is history going to repeat itself at this year's Olympia? Well, initially I thought I would have Regan winning this matchup for condition, especially because for me personally, I usually side with condition over more size. On the other hand, judges usually go with the opposite if they can get better shape from the bigger guy. Well, in this case, they both have good shape, but Regan is really small. The side poses are really weak and pretty much everywhere but the back, he's missing a ton of muscle. To reiterate, they both need size, but Regan is even less muscular than Rafa. That's a big issue for taking down Rafa alone, but that's not all he has to do. He's going to have to contend with a lot more people than just Brandao at the Olympia. Regan will probably stand out more than Rafa, but for the wrong reason. He's going to look really thin compared to the vast majority of open level guys. He's probably going to get a little lost in the pack, allowing Rafa to come out a bit ahead. It is still closer. I don't think Rafa will be miles ahead of Regan, but there will probably be a competitor, maybe 2 or 3 between them, because this will be a stacked year. But I assume they will fall pretty close together because they always have been, because they are so similar. They're in the same boat on needing more size, and Regan has the condition edge and the back poses for now. However, if Rafa does come in a bit sharper than normal, there is no way Regan beats him. Better condition would help limit Regan's margin in the back poses and probably the conditioning category itself, on top of helping a bit in all the other poses. And then at that point, since Brandao is bigger and has great shape, he's just a strict upgrade. Regan has a lot more to do before the Olympia if he wants to beat Rafael consistently, let alone enjoy a top 10 placing again. Rafa needs to be bigger, yeah, and I don't think he will be because he has had some gut issues this offseason, but if he gets more shredded, that's still an improvement without any new size gains. Regan has to make new gains, and there's only a few months left before the show, and he just competed too, so there's probably not a whole lot of time to do anything that substantial. He probably has to completely run the table in the rebound phase and then opt for a short prep, and that's probably not going to yield the best results. But anyway, that's your winner, and that's my prediction as to who is placing higher. I'm free from the wrath of the Brazilian fans, at least for today. Rafael Brandao wins today's matchup, and I am definitely more bullish on him at the 2025 Olympia and on his entire future compared to Regan's. Well, that's going to do it for today's video. What do you guys think about this matchup, and who do you think will be placing higher at this year's Mr. Olympia? Let me know down in the comments below. At this point, we are 18 weeks out, I think, so make sure you hit the like button on this video and subscribe for more of the series and my other videos. And don't forget to leave any suggestions for different matchups as well. By the way, if you're in need of some high quality supplements and want to support the channel even further, head over to Arms Race Nutrition. Then at checkout, use my code Project10 to get 10% off your entire order. That's code Project10 on armsracenutrition.com. And finally, with all that said, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.
Gotta get that Lexia.